Fam, speaking about somebody who fights for freedom of speech, a guy who's always been vocal about Julian Assange, a good band. I know you like him, Pink Floyd, fam. What do you got to say about this? Because he went on with one of your other favorite journalists, Michael Smirkanovich, or whatever his name is, Smirkanish. I don't know. That dude who just spouts out his propaganda left and right.
Yeah, so first of all, Roger Waters is doing like a series of a concert where he's talking about Julian Assange and he's addressing imperialism. And I saw my brother just got tickets for the Orlando one.
Nice.
And I know that he's going to go, everywhere. And it's really nice. I think Misty went with Andrew. And it's really great that he's doing this because most people of that caliber don't, and by caliber I mean like celebrities and rock folk, they don't really talk about politics. So the fact that he's talking about Julian Assange is a big deal. So that's what this whole interview was about. The guy was saying, oh, by the way, he starts off by saying, oh, you last time you mentioned Trump, and it was, he was saying like it was great because Trump, you were talking about how bad Trump was. Now you have Biden. Are you an equal opportunity kind of guy? And then this is when they got into the conversation where it became about Ukraine and Russia. And then, of course, later on, it was about China. And obviously, the CNN stooge is going to advocate on behalf of the NATO establishment narrative. And Roger Waters pushed back, and he pushed back resoundingly. He pushed back in a way that was so amazing for the mainstream to hear, because we know this. This isn't crazy for us. This is like, okay, we say this all the time. But for someone like him and to say these words on CNN, it's a big deal. And the fact that they let it air out. Now, I know that it was an edited version. We're not showing the unedited version, but it was the same thing. The only thing that was added was the Minsk Accords and the explanation as to why this whole thing happened. I understand why they edited it this way, though, because it was more concise and more it packed more of a punch. But I think like the Minsk Accord situation, it got really into more of the specifics. So we're just going to go ahead and watch it, and then we're going to tell you guys, we're going to talk about what it was. So this is the first part of the video where they're talking about the beginning of Ukraine and Russia, and where Roger Waters basically says the United States is the one who really helped stoke this to happen.
And in the current show, you've got a montage of war criminals, according to you, and a picture apparently of President Biden on the screen, and it says, just getting started. What's that all about?
President Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Well, he's fueling the fire in the Ukraine for a start. That is a huge crime. Why won't the United States of America encourage Zelensky, the president, to negotiate, obviating the need for this horrendous war that's killing.
You're blaming.
We don't know how many Ukrainians.
But you're blaming the party that got invaded. Come on, you've got it reversed.
That's you know, any war. When did it start? What you need to do is look at the history, and you can say, well, it started on this day. You could say it started in 2008. Okay, this war is basically about the action and reaction of NATO pushing right up to the Russian border, which they promised they wouldn't do when Gorbachev negotiated the withdrawal of the USSR from the whole of Eastern Europe.
When you say this, then I have to say, what about our role as liberators? You of all people.
You have no role as liberators.
World War II? World War II? You
got into World War II because
Come on.
Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor. You were completely isolationist until that sad, that devastating,
I would argue we were always going to get in, and that
1941.
pushed us in. But thank God the United States got in. Right? You lost your father in World War II. Thank God the United States.
But thank God the Russians had already won the bloody war almost by then. And don't forget, 23 million Russians died protecting you and me from the Nazi menace.
And you would think the Russians would have learned their lesson from war and wouldn't have invaded Ukraine.
Well, you with all your reading, I would suggest to you Michael, that you go away and read a bit more and then try and figure out what the United States would do if the Chinese were putting nuclear-armed missiles into Mexico and Canada.
This one, that makes no sense.
Okay, so I'm going to start off by talking about a couple things here. Obviously, right off the bat, dude uses the whole, yes, but Russia invaded Ukraine. And Roger Waters correctly goes back about, well, you have to talk about when this war started, right? And that's something that they never talk about, and they never point that out. Also, and we're going to talk about this meme that I posted that triggered a lot of people, might even trigger some of our viewers, because we have viewers of all kinds on our show, where we're talking about, you know, the Russians and the Russians under the USSR, right? The Soviet Union, because remember, back then it wasn't just Russia, it was the Soviet Union. And Roger Waters correctly points out what people still are denying right now on this post, that the Russians were the ones that had already been fighting the Nazis, that they were the ones who had defeated and lost millions of people in order to defeat fascism. And Americans don't like talking about that. One, it destroys the whole, wow, we really were the heroes, really were the liberators mindset. Two, it gives credence to at that moment, the counter ideology, which was communism. And obviously we're still at war with Russia now, that is not communist, it's a capitalist country, which many people, I guess, forget. And I think that had a lot of, like, just even putting those discussions out there is a really big deal. And I thought that was important. But what I really liked most about what Roger Waters said was just pushing back with facts. Oh no, you have to look at the history and how we got here. You can't just say this war started this year. Okay. Well, yes, Biden is stoking this conflict in Ukraine. That this is why he's a war criminal, right? Like, he's putting these things out there in the mainstream. And this is coming from somebody who's a musician, somebody that has really, you know, and obviously Pink Floyd has always had a political message in their music. It's one of the reasons why I love them so much. But at the same time, you know, it's still a mainstream audience. And I think it was important to really push back. And he pushed back in a way that only somebody like that can push back.
Well, the thing that's really just, you know, caught me by surprise. Well, it didn't catch me by surprise. We've been saying this, but really every single time you look at it, you know, with the eye, and you say to yourself, okay, let me see if there's a difference between Michael Smirkanish or whatever his name is, and maybe Lindsey Graham, and see how it is. There's no difference in their foreign policy, beliefs. There's no difference in their ideology. They're both, like, they believe in this whole bullshit thing. And when we get to the meme, I think it will be important to point out what that meme means and why it's important, because there is this manufacturing for consent when we constantly tell the story as if the United States foreign policy and its military come in like Captain America, and they're the ones saving the day and spreading democracy and choice for the people. I can understand where some people can be upset or might be saying that, you know, okay, yeah, that might be the case, but this is not, you know, they still have their dirty laundry too as well. I don't think anybody's advocating for it. I think someone just pointing out the fact that we are taught that we are the winners of World War II, that we did it. Like, I mean, look, why did he even go there, fam? The CNN, Michael Smirkanish. Oh, well, thank God we got involved with World War II. What did that have to do with anything that's going on with what we're talking about right now? It has nothing to do. It's just more this nationalism, kind of like, you know, this whole bullshit idea that we are the liberators. He even said, right, what about our role as liberators?
Yeah. Well, that it does have to do, though, in a way, with the entire agenda of the West, the entire agenda of the United States and what they're pushing. It is our American exceptionalist duty, the Monroe Doctrine, the city upon the hill. It is our duty to go educate the rest of the world, to civilize the uncivilized. And that mindset is still present even today, when the moron who cuts up people's videos put up our video and called me a Moscow-based propagandist because of my stance on the Brittany Griner thing, our stance, essentially. And it's the same mindset, like, oh yeah, just because, you know, I don't agree with it, I'm going to come to another country and expect them to adhere to my belief. And we have that belief, even if you mean well. We've talked about it in Nicaragua. where people come in and they're like, you need to do this and you need to be more pro-abortion and more pro-LGBTQ. And Nicaraguans don't like don't like other people who are not Nicaraguan coming in and telling them how to govern. No country likes us to do that. And yet we have this idea, if we believe in this certain ideology, if we feel that our ideology is superior, that we need to go and teach people in a very arrogant way, not in a way where it's like, okay, well, this is my opinion and you can take it or leave it. No, it's like, this is the best way and no other way is it. And I think that's what really shows the arrogance of American exceptionalism. And that's what we are seeing here in the Russia-Ukraine situation, which, by the way, the narrative is falling apart. We're not going to talk about it too much right now, but it is. So,
yeah. And fair, by the way, I just want to really piggyback really on what you're saying too as well. At the end of the day, I think we need to really just point out the specifics of each system that we like. Most of the socialists, communists, people we know, they're fighting for workers' rights. Those people that are part of that whole, movement now and whatnot, and they want to kind of get this form of socialism. It's not they want socialism as a whole. They want workers' rights. It's always about labor. It seems when you talk to, especially the people who come from the global part of it, the people we meet out there, they're not into these culture wars and all that bullshit. They want workers' rights. And the people, those libertarians who got all huffy about your meme and stuff like that, well, point out the things you don't like. Too much concentrated power, too much centralized power. That's what you don't like. You know what I'm saying? You're going to sit still there and advocate. Remember, your form of economics, whether it be Austrian economics or whatnot, it's still capitalism. You want to sell this compassionate capitalism? It's not. It hasn't worked. So I think we have to point out the specifics within each system that we like and dislike, and then find a way to come up with a system that works for all. Go ahead, fam.
Okay, so the second part of this thing was discussing, it got a little bit more heated, and there was also the discussion of Taiwan and China and that whole situation. So let's play it real quick and then we'll talk about it.
The Chinese are too busy encircling Taiwan as we speak. Okay?
They're not encircling Taiwan. Taiwan is part of China. And that's been absolutely accepted by the whole of the international community since 1948. And if you don't know that, you're not reading enough. Go and read about it.
Okay. Did we solve anything here today?
No. Well, yeah, we did. Well, I mean, no, we didn't.
I mean,
you're believing your propaganda, your side's propaganda.
You're defining it as
Taiwan,
propaganda.
you can't have a conversation about human rights, and you can't have a conversation about Taiwan without actually doing the reading.
Roger, if you're having a conversation about human rights, at the top of the list of offenders are the Chinese. Why is it always the Western world?
Top of your list.
Why is it
the
always
Chinese
the Western
didn't
world?
invade Iraq and kill 1 million people in 2003. In fact, as far as I can recall, hang on a minute, who have the Chinese invaded and murdered, slaughtered?
Their own.
Bollocks.
Okay.
That's absolute nonsense. Complete nonsense. You should go away and read, but read some proper.
Hey, my problem is I spend too much time reading your liner notes.
All right, cut
okay.
this asshole, because I don't want to hear.
Thank you for doing that.
No more of this shit. All right, fam. I didn't want to hear that. Roger was great. He was nice to him after too as well, because he wants to continue to have access to get out there and be able to talk to people. And the whole thing is, I mean, we missed the part when he goes, "What about our role as liberators? What about our role as liberators?" And this goes, "The Chinese kill their own." And then Roger hit him with, "Oh, the last time I looked, we have 1,000 foreign policy military bases in other countries, not the Chinese. The last I saw, we can't go a week without a bomb, an American bomb or a drone killing somebody." I mean, like, I've always said this. Well, why don't we wash our own laundry over here? It's just ridiculous. Go ahead, fam.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is, again, look, China is at the top of the list, right? He's like, how many people has China killed? Oh, okay, their own. Okay, so now you go to every single NATO-backed, CIA-backed talking point of China and the Uyghurs, right? And you have all of that. And, like, that's what he's referencing. But really, how many military bases do they have compared to ours? Russia, same thing. It's always, the Chinese. Okay, nobody's asking you to move to China and adhere to the government that China has. By the way, to all of you who really dislike China, fine, dislike China all you want. That doesn't mean you get to lie about what's really happening here. I mean, I don't agree with some of the things China has done when it comes to COVID. 100%. I don't at all. And I don't agree with most countries and the way they've reacted to that at all. But the reality is that doesn't mean you're going to go and pretend China is somehow more authoritarian, where we are authoritarian in a completely different imperialist way, where we have to go and take away people's sovereignty. The United States recognizes China's one policy on paper. They recognize that China is that Taiwan is a part of China. They don't recognize Taiwan as a separate entity, but on the main, right, on paper, but underneath, really, it's passive aggressive. They're pushing this sort of conflict with China via Pelosi and via the way they talk about China, the rhetoric and everything. And so that they know what they're doing, and they know to instruct their talking heads like this guy, whatever his name is, to say those same exact talking points, to which Roger Waters points out it's hypocritical because the United States killed millions of Iraqis for a fake thing, for non-existing weapons of mass destruction, right? And we completely created chaos in West Asia or the Middle East as we know it. And now we are still living the consequences of all of that. So it's really, I think this is phenomenal that he was able to point this out. This clip is making the rounds everywhere. Everybody's talking about it. And I think a lot of people who may not be aware of all of this, at the very least, are starting to question it as all of these narratives are falling apart. And believe me, they are falling apart more rapidly than we think they are. What's happening now is the establishment is trying to save face by controlling this whole thing, by making it seem like this whole that everything's fine when really things are not fine. The world is shifting away. America does not have this single word anymore. They don't have this unipolar world anymore. And I think that because of all of this happening, was just such a perfectly timed moment for somebody like Roger Waters to say this. And if you look back at the music, of course, of Pink Floyd, you understand that this is something that it just makes perfect sense.
Yeah. Roger Waters has said a lot of great stuff, a lot of stupid stuff, not a lot of stupid stuff here and there. You know what I'm saying? I remember him on the COVID. Yeah, a lot of people didn't agree. We, of course, got that. But great with Julian Assange, was able to send some love to us in Colombia for doing that.